good time for me to ask you about how things are going with GPMS because again, you were saying just a moment ago that you and Rick were looking at, um, integrating some of these new concepts once you're more connected to them and are able to speak to them in a more simplified fashion, sort of saying that. And you're not there yet, but it made me think that that's kind of what, in a way, that premise kind of also falls into GPMS is that we've done financial world in a certain way up to this point. And, ultimately, I think we're probably evolving to the point of having no money at all. But in the meantime, there's got to be transition. So I've always felt the GPMS was more of a transition, and you and Rick were sort of more at the head of that movement, if I can call it that, or that way of looking at things. So how are things going in that world?
Still funky with that. Still, I mean, I'll be honest and open and state that the GPMS will come to fruition. It's just a matter of time, not if, but when. It's not that far away. The outside world is imploding rapidly. The lack of coherency at the moment, or the lack of unity, is not a lack per se. It's unanticipated how resilient people are to remain in their negativity, shall we say, or observed negativity. I mean, I've still got to sit with the highest and say everything is perfect. So whatever's happening is happening, but unanticipated. From our point of view, certainly 18 months in and finding a lack of coherency or lack of unity in what would be classed as the higher ones. There's 4.3 million higher or ascended masters. I'll call it that, 4.3 million ascended masters on the planet. And they don't seem to be able to unite, which is, so they're still considering, there seems to be a lot that still consider themselves to be human and are carrying the old frequencies. This is just from my perspective, I'm not saying it's fact, but from my perspective, that's what the case is. The masses, that are in the human experience, I've got everybody's perfect in their own place. So I'm still quite surprised that GPMS at the moment is, or many are still not involved with it, let's say. The alternative media I can give or take now, because that's just so controlled. The narratives in there, you might find some good ones, but they're all limited. Nobody's giving a real solution. The ones that have heard about GPMS have thrown it out the window. They're not, again, people that you would expect or anticipate that would know and take it and see it are finding such trivial reasons why not to. Many leaders of groups and speakers of groups that have been told about GPMS have thrown it out and won't tell their groups, and haven't transferred the information to those that they're supposed to be leading. I find a lot of it strange. But there's a divine reason for some reason. As much as Rick and I are like, how do we change things and this, that, and the other, I've got to sit with until the truth comes out and is undeniable, until the paradigm is shifted for people. They're not looking to choose something different that creates this into this space of not knowing. So as we were talking to earlier with this leap of faith, freedom, absolute freedom from all of the control systems and all the enslavery systems and all of the work and indoctrination systems that humanity have been had imposed upon them. Freedom is more fearful than prison. Staying in that indoctrination system has a sense of Stockholm syndrome or Munchausen syndrome, whichever one it is. People are happier in there suffering than choosing something that they don't know what will be. So, you're in your prison cell and the prison outside the prison is heaven, but you don't know that. So it's very fearful. So I'll stay in the cell. Thank you. It's where it's where it's been. And I can't, I understand it. I see it. I was it. I've been it. I've experienced it. I don't get how many of the higher ones that out there that know a lot more are still playing that game or still in that mode. But whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and there will be a unity, and it will start to come. I can't wait, William. To be honest with you, I'm really I can't wait for these discussions on round tables around the world. Don't get me wrong, we're having beautiful chats with people. We've got teams set up. Thailand's got 18,000. It's running beautifully. They've got a whole paradigm shift over there. They're moving goods and marketing things between themselves for free. They've said, we know GPMS is coming. We're not going to wait. We're just going to run like it's here. And we'll tell everybody else around the world how we do it. And we want everybody to come and see us. And we want to go and see everybody else. They've already got that mentality. Other countries, due to their oppression of the governments and bits and pieces, have got people in them that are trying to move things forward. So all around the world, or however you see the world, we have pockets of GPMS. Wow. I think it's 27,000 now consented, but many people are ready for it. They just don't have the value in them to make a choice for freedom. So the worthless nature that we all feel we are, the trivial individual, scared little mouse, timid little mouse that's eating the cheese in the corner, that each individual thinks they are, not realizing they are a being of infinite value and infinite energy. At a point in time, they will realize what they are and unite. When we've had that conversation over and over.
Oh, we have. I felt like after asking the question that I almost kind of asked you, how is the crop doing? And you brought me back this huge, beautiful, juicy, sweet, red watermelon that just is so delicious that, it's like, because there's so much in it. There is so much in it that struck me as you were talking about this. And I thought, oh my goodness, where do I go with some of the things that you just shared? I got a chance to see the resistances that I currently have. The other day, and I'll give you an example of this. The other day you mentioned that that you were passing on sort of a message that Rick was sharing with you about the possibility of me doing some interviews with people for the GPMS channel, perhaps on YouTube or elsewhere, or just for videos in general. I see your picture froze, but I think you're back.
It just froze for me for a second.
Yeah, it froze for me too. So when you freeze, I freeze for you, you freeze for me.
I heard you say, I heard you say that Rick had asked about you interviewing. You still there? Yeah.
Yes.
I missed the rest.
That's okay. There wasn't much that you missed then, but basically I was just saying that when you shared that with me, I noticed that there was still, and I will admit, and I'm going to do so at the same time of letting go any guilt that I have, because I do have a certain sense of guilt around all of this. I personally have I've signed the document for GPMS. Okay, we broke up again, so now you missed that part too. It'll be in the recording, but you won't see it necessarily. So let me take a step back. Let me try again. So just to review, Rick shared an idea with you, or a suggestion or comment anyways, about the possibility of me doing interviews with people inside of the world of GPMS, talking about GPMS items or activities or whatever you want to call it. And it might be a value. And I noticed a resistance within myself, not about the interview part, but more coming from a place of guilt for not being more connected and more involved in the GPMS movement as it is. But I also recognize that there was one part of me that was resistant in taking any more steps into the GPMS movement, even though I like the concept and what it holds. And I've never ultimately shared it with you or with Rick or with anyone. And I thought, why am I holding on to this? Even though my thoughts will go crazy and say, okay, I'm afraid to share this, or there might be consequences of all that. But basically I have challenges still with, and you said this as well in your last answer, with claiming our power to really see just how powerful we are. So what Rick has often said in interviews on the different videos is that he had a direct message from the higher source, the higher power, to do GPMS, to offer this, to bring this to the world. And I had difficulty with that. I had difficulty with him saying that because one, I was judging it. I was going, okay, well, who does Rick think he is, to make that claim? And that was coming from a place of my own insecurity. And then I was also feeling insecure because I'm thinking, if I connect myself with a movement that has a person who's sort of spearheading it, I don't want to say leading it because I know you don't want leaders, but spearheading it, who said he's connected to God and was spoken to God. And I'm going, I think that a lot of people would have resistance to accepting that message because they'll think that, Rick is wacky or is a freak or something like that. And my ego says, I don't want to be connected to a freak. So Rick, if you see this, I apologize for having these thoughts, but they were my thoughts.
Brother. Thank you for your truth. You just keep talking. Rick really won't judge you at all. And this is awesome because I love the fact it's coming out.
Yeah, I think it has to come out. I happen to be the one that's saying it. Maybe other people have said it already, but this is the first time I think it's ever been broached that I've been connected to. And perhaps this will be of use, for other people who may have had the same kinds of feelings or reactions to this. But what you said in your last answer, Lee, was that, or what I heard, let's put it that way, maybe you didn't say it, but what I heard was that we are still a lot of us are still playing small. We're not seeing just how powerful we are, just how connected we are to the universe and how much we can actually do if we were to take off all the restraints that we put on ourselves. So, so for example, I know in my world, if I were to get more involved with GPMS and not care and not worry about what other people might think, or if people will judge Rick or think Rick is some strange character who thinks, that he's a direct messenger from God and people might have a reaction to that. It doesn't matter, like I'm just, if I can step away from that and just say, okay, is this movement something to pursue? Does this resonate with me? And if it does, then why not take action? And what do I feel about it? What else can I do to connect myself to it and move forward with it? So if I can allow myself to take off the shackles of, my ego and all of that stuff, can I put that aside and can I see myself as something greater, even if we are going to face a lot of scrutiny and judgment and resistance and whatever else comes. So there you go. I've spilt it all on the table. I've just been holding on to all of that. And I wanted to kind of release that because your last answer was so good. I felt like I had to share that.
Thank you so much, man. And it's you've said it all really from the level of the fear. Yeah. So the fear-based, let me just get this back into focus. The fear-based mind tells you all the reasons why you shouldn't, but the heart says, I want it. And the fear-based mind is pointing fingers at one and then the judgment that could bring. Not the purity of the instrument, not the freedom and release of what it is that we're talking about, but the ones who are talking, which makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So again, what you're doing there is you're outlining. See, one of the interesting concepts I used to do with my thinking mind was, what if you're wrong? So where the thinking mind is telling me, what if you're wrong? I tell it, what if you're wrong? So what if, the GPMS thing, your fears that you're coming up with, what if Rick is actually who he says he is? And you didn't get involved when you had the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. Then what? Of course, that's a leap into the unknown. That's a leap of faith.
Yep.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah,
What's the
I'm up here right now on the onion. I didn't go through the onion in this one. But
but
like
you
you said,
get the point.
I can always cut from where I am back to the middle. So you don't have to, once you start going up the onion, you don't have to keep going up the onion necessarily. You can always bypass from where you are.
But the thing is, what you're doing is outlining so beautifully the process of how the ego tells you you're worthless and how others will judge you if you get this wrong.
Yeah.
What? But again, if you know you're perfect and you're a divine individual, then, or a soul of eternity, a divine spark of creation,
Yeah.
how can you? And who's going to judge you? What the other? This is all in the moment. Of course, it causes the fight, flight, or foul or whatever, fawn, fight, flight, fawn idea of it's all too scary.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not. What does GPMS offer? Absolute freedom, equality, inclusivity for every single system, for every single human, for the foreseeable future. But we can't have it because Rick speaks of he's God or speaks to Creator.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, we had a question yesterday on an interview we did, and it was, well, we can't give money to everybody because who's going to do the work? That keeps who's going to work to keep society, keep the structure of society? What? The fuck, again, billions of people, 85% of the planet's in poverty, 25,000, I don't know how many African children are dying each day of not having water, no matter the ones that are starving. But you can't make money free and help those people, because otherwise you won't have people doing the menial tasks like making you burgers and shit. Come on, guys. These ideas, where are they coming from? Where are the thought processes? And so I love what you said, brother. I'm not actually going to reply to it because I think what you've said is perfect. Yeah. In your actual words are all of the answers. You've answered yourself by giving yourself your fears.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to say something you mentioned there too. I know I've said this before when we've spoken, I think as well with Randall when we had our three-way conversations, but I love the movie The Truman Show. And you must have seen it with Jim Carrey. And to me, Jim's adventure in that movie was he was, born inside an artificial world, and we got a chance to see in. But when you were speaking a moment ago about, you gave that example about, who's going to keep society going if no one's going to work, or, that kind of thing. I immediately thought of the Truman Show again, because I thought we're still looking from within the Truman world. We are little Trumans living in our little Truman worlds. And the courage that we need is to be able to step far enough back to step out of the psyche and the world that we call our own Truman Show. And some people like to call it the Matrix. That's a different analogy kind of thing too, is being able to step out of that far enough that you can see the bigger picture and say, okay, we can reinvent this whatever way we want. But we're so busy still referencing things that we grew up with within our worlds. Some people might call that indoctrination, that we cannot see a different picture, like a bigger, completely different picture, because we're all still basing everything on things that we've learned from the past, because that's just what we knew to be real, to be the truth for us in that time. But I think GPMS is basically saying you need to take that little world that you were in and step out of it and see something completely new from a completely new place and not reference anything from the past. How does that strike you? I see you have some thoughts around that.
Perfect. It's just at what degree that we're pitching this to. So, yes, but let's say there's different levels of player in the game, and there's no level higher than another, but there's different roles that each player will play during this game, if you will. Soul contracts, however people wish to describe it, doesn't make any difference. There's people here for the human experience. There's people here to change the human experience. There's people here in the middle. So many different levels of consciousness. The ones that we're talking to with this about stepping outside and seeing the bigger picture are, let's say, in an office over here, wherever, then it's not higher than others, but it's just here to do something different. There's lots of people that are just playing the game, if you will, at a human level, enjoying the human experience, or enduring, depending on which way you're looking at it, yep. Enduring or enjoying. They're not necessarily the ones that we're talking to with this idea of thinking outside of the box. They will experience the change, but they're not going to create it. There will be a part of it, but not at this point necessarily. So we're looking at sort of 3 billion people or thereabouts choosing GPMS, and we've got 27,000 at the moment, or 28,000. There's a certain amount of quality over quantity at this time. So there's the higher consciousness ones, the ones that are here to carry out a different task, a different role, that should be looking outside of the box. That's what they're here to do. And there's also the humans here to experience that. So again, we've got different. Does that make any sense to you, brother? There's others. There's, as I say, 4.3, I think 4.32 million ascended ones. And lots of other light workers and grid workers, some people call them star seeds, and all of the stuff that's happening that are doing other work. And then the humans that are experiencing their human experience.
Well, I've heard those numbers. Well, I've heard different numbers as well, but I've heard numbers from yourself now a couple of times in this interview, but I've heard your numbers here. I've heard other people talk about other numbers. I've heard 144,000 is a number tossed in there somewhere. Obviously, ultimately, I would imagine that the numbers really aren't that important in the big scheme of things. However, I'm curious as to where the numbers come from. Like, where do you get these numbers? How did you become in touch with the 4.3 million number and that kind of thing?
Well, I trust Rick. I've done a lot of collaboration with Rick, and I've done a lot of stuff with him and worked with him, and let's say talk to other, we could call them galactics, brothers and sisters, and higher, Elohim, and higher to Father Prime Creator, if you will, through Rick, or with Rick, not through, with. And I'm a cynic. I'm very cynical. So of course I
guessed that. I would have never guessed that.
I was a cynic. No, I'm still. I don't believe anything. My birthright. Well, everybody's right is to question everything and keep questioning it, and I do. So I've put Rick into many situations whereby he would. There's no way he could say some of the things that he could say without stuff. So Rick's beyond reproach with me with trust. And Rick has openly stated that he put a call out, a divine call out, clarion call out for assistance with this mission that we are here for. I'm happy to say I'm an ascended master, brother. I'm here as to assist this mission, whatever this mission is and ends up to be. I can guess what it is. I can guess what it is right now without the full knowing. But part of it is to get humanity into a lower 5D and get GPMS into inception. That's part. The other parts, again, I spoke about a little bit earlier with regards to the energetic work and the physics and all the rest of that. That's other parts of this. But the 4.3 were the ones that put their hand up and said, yeah, we'll come and help. They're the ones that Rick refers to as assisting him divinely. I've got I could show many different things as to why that's real, but to me, I'm not going to say to anybody else, it's all perspective and opinion. I fully trust Rick, and that's what Rick said to me as I put their hands up, and many, maybe more. So that number could grow, but of the 144, that's a collective number. That's Hopi prophecies. That's different things. That's all through the alternative media. This 4.3 is purely between Rick and I, or Rick and his numbering. So they're the ones I speak to. We call them the collective, and then there's the mass, if you want. But it doesn't matter how you, the terminology. So the collective that I speak to are the 4.32 that are here to assist humanity or assist in this uplift into a higher frequency, a new playground, a new human experience, to change the human environment, to some people could say right the wrongs, but there were no wrongs. It's just to redress the balance, or to balance things, to harmonize, to ensure that this carries through. But I'll say simply right now, all we're doing is walking the walk that's already been done. When you look at a lot of how creation works, it's done energetically first, and then it's manifest. So the energy behind it carries it out, and then it manifests into reality. What we're doing is walking through an already manifest reality. GPMS is already manifest. We're walking up to it. This is already finished. We're just walking through it. So we're carrying out the process in manifest reality to bring it into manifest from the energetic, where it's already been carried out. So this is what we're here to do, is to walk this walk, carry the frequency. So when you say numbers don't matter, they do. It's the energetic value of the frequency that those individuals hold. So their frequency, their vibration, whatever people talk to like this, it doesn't matter. The frequency of one at a high vibration can impact 1 million or more. So when you're looking at the vibrationary frequencies that the higher or the divine ones carry, they have a huge impact, but they can't be seen. And one of the interesting concepts rules that was given to me at the beginning, and this is from an internal knowing, was the human experience will not be broken, or will be maintained. The human experience will be maintained. So a lot of this will be done unseen. And of course, energetic frequency is unseen. The morphogenetic field is unseen. The Akash and all of these things that we can't see because they're outside of our light spectrum of our eyes or our perspective are unseen. So humanity will lift themselves up. They will save themselves. It's not a case of them being saved or a savior. Humanity will choose to save themselves because they're all souls of creation. They need to become empowered, and they will, but they're not going to get that empowerment from an external source. What they're going to do is get disempowerment from that external source until they empower themselves. It's exactly what we're seeing happening. You can't be given empowerment. You have to embody it. You have to be in the corner and come out fighting. We know this from our own experience. People don't choose to change unless they have to. I don't think that's necessary. I'd like to say it isn't necessary. But the longer this goes on, the more it seems that the resilience says it is necessary. So humanity are being oppressed and suppressed to the point where they have to come out fighting. And there's nobody to fight. And there's nobody to blame. And that's the other funky part. So all of that anger and all of that frustration, who are you going to blame them? There is nobody. We accepted this. We've ran with it. We didn't make any, we chose it all and we allowed them to do it. There is nobody to blame. But in the moment, we're not choosing to change the system because we're so full of fear. Well, that fear leaves when you start to become empowered. So this is where we are with all of this. Those that need it are getting external disempowerment because they want to be empowered. Give me my rights back. I need my rights. Take them. They're yours. They haven't got them. You think they have. It's only because you believe they have that they have. And same with the monetary system. It's only because you believe it's got value that it has. It's only because you believe the government's got authority that it has. All of these are fake. The value, the authority, the rights are within every single one of us. But we believe that they've took them all. It's craziness. So once we look for something and we don't get it, eventually we have to stand into it ourselves. I looked for trust in others for years because I had none in myself. I never got any. I had to start to trust myself, right? And it's the same with all of these things. It's the same. So what we're seeing ongoing right now is those that need it, the external are showing them they can't trust anything. So they have to start to trust themselves. In the higher ones, they're having it on an individual basis. So some may be losing everything. Some may be doing, it doesn't matter. What it's doing is creating a shedding of a belief. They're letting go of the idiotic. the external belief that the external is real, and the knowing that they are, and this empowerment. And it doesn't matter how long we spend talking to individuals, it's very difficult to empower somebody that doesn't want to feel empowered. So you have to have the will to change. And this is that leap of faith. So you can go around and fight and kick and scream and get there, or straight through the middle. The mechanic is the same. It doesn't, again, it doesn't matter how difficult this gets or how much it seems. The patterning in the mechanic is the same. You're going to be in fear, or you're just going to go straight through it and say, yeah, that's what I want. Don't care about the rest. And this is so we can see it from the observer point of view happening everywhere. The suppression to cause empowerment of the divine beings that are here, that don't think they are. It's fascinating.
Indeed. Indeed.
I don't know. I've been waffling a bit there, brother. I'm not sure if if it's making, it should make coherent sense, because I'm not really thinking about it, but I might have lost you.
It was fine for me. I was hearkening back to a thought I had earlier during the telecast, or recording, or whatever we call this. I was thinking about the first time I saw you was in an interview with Randall, and as is typical of me, admittedly, and I'm going to try to let go of any guilt I have around this, but I judged you. Like I immediately said, this guy's way over my head. I can't connect to him. I don't understand him. And then of course I met you through Randall, and at first I felt a little awkward, because I felt like I don't know if I can connect with Lou, because I feel like we speak two different languages. And then as we kind of got more into the Tao group, I noticed that you stepped back a little bit to have your own quiet space, and you were kind of a little bit separated from that. But when you came back, there was a different energy. At least I perceived you differently. Whether there was a completely different energy with you or not, I'm not sure. But you did state that there's some things that definitely changed in your life. And certainly if you look back, and it's hard to believe it's only been 2.5, 3 years through that whole cycle, because I think I saw you probably in early 2020. And then I think it was 2020. It was during the lockdowns for sure, because I know I didn't meet Randall until later in 2020.
It would have been late 2020, unless you saw me earlier. But no, the interview with Randy was October 2020, the first one.
The first one? Okay, well then it was definitely the fall of 2020. So it's hard to believe it's been 2 years. The journey seemed like it's been a lot longer, definitely, because there's been gaps in there that seem like little eternities, if you will, between. But it's only been 2 calendar years, so that's quite amazing. But yeah, from my first connection observation of you with Randall to then transitioning partway through, once you, Randall, and I started collaborating more together between the three of us, to now where, you and I are connecting at times on our own. I see huge change in you, and certainly huge change in my perception and connection with you. Like I feel very much more able to connect with you. In fact, connect with you in a way that I connect with very few other human beings at this time. So I'm very thankful of that. And I said this the last time we had one of these calls, is that I didn't know what the heck we were going to talk about, but I knew once we started going, we'd have no problem. So anyways, I wanted to share all that with you in a way of thanks, in a way of observation and sharing, and just gratitude as well.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure. And the larger my perspective, the more connected it's got, is one of the things I would say in reply to that. So really, the more I've released, the easier it's been to see more. The less I know, the more I know I don't know. But it's I don't know. I mean, we've all got different opinions, and we've all grown significantly, or grown significantly in the last couple of years.
And released too, I think, because we had to let go of some things too.
Yeah, yeah. Enlightened, lifted, all of these things. So it's very difficult to go back 2 years and remember, because I can't go back to yesterday and remember. It's because it doesn't exist. So I remember the time, but there was no judgment. So I can't remember what I was doing, even though I would have probably been a little bit more bouncy energetically. I'd have been a little bit more dismissive, whatever. But it's been interesting, brother. It's been beautiful, and I appreciate every second I've spent with you too. It's been a lot of fun, and we can always, what were we doing? Like 2 hours, and it's like 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe, to me anyway.
Yeah.
We're 2 hours in, and having hit some significant subjects and gone into quite deep metaphysics, heavy spirituality without being spiritual, discussed future freedoms and everything else with no difficulty, and removed all complexity and made everything simple. How beautiful is that? Just on a Zoom call chat between, Denmark at the moment, not the UK, and Canada.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you as well. Yeah, for me, just again, it's hard to express in words, but it's almost magical because I mean, you mentioned it several times throughout the last 2 hours, that so many of us still see ourselves as so small. And when I get a chance to talk with you and with Randall and some other conscious souls, I get to see the larger me. I get to see the potential of just how awesome I am, that kind of thing, and we all are, and that kind of thing. But it's I get amazed so many times, and so it reminds me that maybe it shouldn't be something that I do once every 4 months or something. It might be useful to do it more often. So I look forward to doing it more frequently with you, as well as some of the other souls that I'd like to connect with. And I hope that if you're inspired that way, that you do the same.
Listen, I speak whenever I can to these. It might not be all the time. We get, I mean, at the moment, I'm on the back of probably a 2-month incommunicado, where I'm choose is the wrong word. The opportunities to speak with people are small. Have been, and I've chosen to quite happily sit with that. So it depends on what's ongoing, but I do believe that we'll be talking a lot more as things progress. I do believe, again, I use the word believe without putting anything in there, that things may progress a little quicker now, moving forwards very, very shortly. Things may change without putting any pins into what, and it may not be seen. It may be energetic and it may be nuanced, but nevertheless, there's going to be a unification of higher frequency ones, higher conscious ones, that will come about, and that will create a shift in the energetics of those that are experienced in the human playground.
Yeah.
So consciousness is going to raise, and it is raising. The frequency is raising all the time, and those that can't stay with it don't.
I hear a very similar message. I hear that. I'll use the word parallel. I'm hearing that in many of the different circles that I'm following, like as far as videos go, and even on Telegram, the same kind of message. Things are going to start shifting this month and in the next few months, especially. And then I've even heard someone say, I don't remember where exactly, but 2023 was going to be a year of disclosure and change and discovery, and it sounds exciting. So it's interesting that you say that as well. So it solidifies that for me even more. And it's funny because I'm not hearing it necessarily just from one circle, so not just from the spiritual circle or not just from the financial circle, but from all circles, political, you name it. It just seems like everything I'm following is kind of saying almost the same thing.
I'm not saying it from too much of a conspiracy theory viewpoint. And when I say conspiracy theory, what I mean is alt media. I'm quite happy to say that's what I've been for many 35 years plus in the eyes of some. But I'm saying it from a what would be called a retroductive theoretic point of view, where there's an outcome and we are here. How do we get to there? So bringing it back, what is the next step that will happen, and what's occurring around that makes that possibility a probability? So I can see what's going on in the external collective. I can see what's going on with the banking structures and everything else, but there's a lower timeline there that's imploding and will fail, and it will meet the upper timeline, but the upper timeline still needs to be congealed or connected, unified. So what is it that we've been doing? One of the things is, we've got one of the activations was, let's say, a dimensional mechanism, let's call it that has a representation here, is manifest here, but is not seen, if you will, that is upgrading molecular value to be compatible with the new frequency. Molecular value would be history, through the Akashic record of everything, to refine that to be compatible with its next frequency, the next frequency up. I could go into a lot more detail about that, but I'm not going to. That's part of one of the things that we've done. Now, with that, you've got a raising consciousness, you've got a raising frequency of the molecular value of the individual atom, or it's not atom, but I'll call it atom, molecule. It can't have any negative connected to it to where we're going to be. It must be compatible with the higher frequency. And that transfers through to consciousness. So as the air is being cleaned and the molecular value of the planet is being made compatible, so is the consciousness. And those that are here with a higher consciousness already will have, let's say, divine nudges to align them. So what's going on with all the other stuff will follow that. So what we've seen is, as we being a collective, not just a couple of us, have been doing the energetic work here, we've lifted that, and then the consciousness catches up. So there's a kind of do lag, which is left sort of 2 month limbos, 1 month limbos, 2 month limbos. So we push forward and then push forward, and then and this has been ongoing. We can see it in the feminine, pushing forward and then stopping, and having the masculine having to catch up. But there's resistance in all of this. Is I mean, again, not saying it isn't divine, but there's been resistance in all of the movements. You can see in all the old media the amount of the feminine movement that's blaming men, when feminine by nature should be loving the men and nurturing the men and helping the men. But you've seen all of the memes and media and all of these things that's been going around, and it's prevalent, you know. But again, this is that sort of resistance that we're finding in there that's got a darker aspect to it. But nevertheless, this is ordained, it's guaranteed. It's not something that's being done on a whim. GPMS is very, very serious and will come to fruition. It's not about if and when, it is purely about when. This is happening. This is not happening. This isn't in a figment of somebody's imagination. This is fact, and it's divine. People can believe what they will. All I say is it's your choice what you believe. Make the right choice. Make the one that's unlimited. When you've been taught everything's limited, make the one that's unlimited. What do you think you are? I can happily tell you you're divine, infinite, and eternal. What do you believe you are? Your choice. I can tell you have infinite value, and it's in you, inalienable rights, and nobody has authority above you. What do you believe? It's that simple. It is that simple. When you boil it down. I did have a conversation with a feminine a while ago about ships that were flying in the sky, and people call them satellites and things. And she said, I'm never sure if it's a satellite or not. I said, well, have you ever seen a satellite? She said, well, that might be. I said, no, have you ever seen one? What, physically? Yeah. No, I haven't. Well, why would you believe that's a satellite then? Have you ever seen a UFO? No. So you've never seen either of them, but you believe it's what the telly tells you. It's your choice. It's absolutely your choice. Same with all of this. It's fascinating, isn't it? You can make it so simple, and then it becomes so complicated in there.
Mm-hmm. That's part of fun.
I don't mind it. I just laugh at it now, brother. It used to get to me a little bit, but now I just release it. And I all the complication that ones make for themselves cause suffering. Why? Why bother? But if you choose to, so be it. I love you. You know, you kind of in a kind of demeaning aspect. It's almost like you'll learn. As and when. It's just your choice when. Anyway, should we call this one, my friend? I mean,
I think we should. Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. So I am going to thank you once more for taking the time and spending all this wonderful wisdom with us, and for helping me to see some things too, and just allowing me to inspire and also just to release some things as well.
beautiful. And thank you so much for being honest and vulnerable with this. And I dropped into some deeper stuff there, but most of that stuff I went into is available online. Most. And I'm not trying to hide things. It's just that there's some things that we don't need to be saying yet. There's plenty of information that's within that for people to go and check. And if anybody is interested in looking up the magnetism and looking into that, if anybody watches this, go and have a look at a guy called Theoria Apotheosis, sorry, or Ken Wheeler.
That'll be easy to remember. Ken Wheeler would be easier to find, I think.
Yeah, Theoria Apotheosis or Ken Wheeler. He's got a lot of stuff on magnetism, and it will expand your horizons should you wish to go down that route, even though it's a mind fucker. It causes a bit of a problem
too, and I went, well, it's just a bit too much for me. Wheeler, I assume, Wheeler.
Yeah, that's right, Ken Wheeler. I'm not going to spell Theoria. But yeah, that's just to pass that, because this isn't, the information that I'm giving out is some of it's mine, but a lot of it's been given or guided to by others. So Ken will get his due respect on this one for being brilliant.
Very good. Thank you, Lee.
Love you, brother. We'll speak soon. Always a pleasure. Love everybody else.